Good afternoon. It's a lovely, beautiful day in March. Where are we? Late March. Here on the Isle of Wight in Ventnor. I just wanted to do a short video about one of my favourite species, the red-backed shrike, or the butcherbird, about which I've written a book, Return of the Butcherbird, all about how to get this lovely species back into the British countryside. So I'm just going to do a quick video which kind of basically covers a lot of the ground that is in this book, which you can go and purchase on Amazon if you want, but I'll come back to that at the end. So red-backed shrikes were once kind of a widespread, widely distributed species across the kind of the southern England countryside, well, across Britain really, but it declined dramatically. The decline kind of set in the 60s and 70s, probably a bit earlier, basically as agricultural intensification of the landscapes set in. So red-backed shrikes basically like early successional, or at least open, flower-rich grasslands with isolated pockets of shrubs, thorny shrubs, your wild rose, field rose, brambles, blackthorns, hawthorns, widely distributed, not big chunks of scrub, but small patches widely distributed within flower-rich pasture, neutral pastures, mesotrophic grasslands, lowland chalk grasslands, limestone grasslands, any kind of grassland habitat with lots and lots of invertebrates. And they have an inordinate fondness for beetles, as does God apparently. It's really one of their primary food resources are beetles, ground beetles, dung beetles. They love cattle dung, pasture grazed areas with cattle dung or bison dung, oryx dung back in the day when we used to have oryx before we made them globally extinct. So beetles is one of their primary food resources, and then bumblebees and wasps, basically larger invertebrates that are visiting the wildflowers for nectar and pollen that are distributed within the grassland components of the habitat. And they love Orthoptera, grasshoppers, so more tussocky grassland is very much favours red-backed shrike. A kind of a mosaic in terms of the structure of the grasslands. They love, or the grasshoppers love, the taller tussocky grassland, whereas the red-backed shrikes need grazed lawns basically on which to capture their beetles and their grasshoppers. And then they love odonata, so dragonflies and damselflies. So anywhere near some wet habitat where you've got lots of damselflies coming into your flower-rich grassland, scrubby grassland, and clean water ponds are a really important component of a really good red-backed shrike territory. And they love water beetles as well, so where they nest around the edges of wetlands, such as beaver ponds or old peat workings, as at some sites in the Netherlands, where they nest around those kind of habitats. They're going to be going for dragonflies, damselflies and water beetles as they fly into the wetlands habitats. So beavers are likely to be a real kind of godsend for red-backed shrike going forward. The more beaver wetlands you get unfolding across the British countryside, the better. Is that a buzzard there? I assume you're a buzzard, yes, very much a buzzard, flying overhead, being mobbed by a herring gull. So, just to recap, they like larger invertebrates, so a centimetre, 10 millimetres and larger. Beetles, ground beetles, bumblebees and wasps, butterflies, dayfly moths, grasshoppers and bush crickets as well, and dragonflies and damselflies. They're the main food resources. The larger invertebrates is key to red-backed shrike kind of overall population viability and productivity. And they like to forage on isolated kind of twigs, stems of bramble and gorse and wild rose. So they're a sit and wait hunter. They'll sit up on a isolated twig that gives really good views around the open grassland, and they'll leap down and pounce on, say, a ground beetle that's broken cover and is scurrying across open ground, like churned up ground, churned by wild boar, or tightly grazed, rabbit grazed grassland, or cattle graze grassland, and the cattle dung are absolutely key because they do love dung beetles as well. And they'll build the nest within a kind of a slightly taller hawthorn or wild crabapple, wild pear tree, something embedded within the grassland, surrounded by some bramble and gorse or whatever, and they'll position the nest within that tree quite low down. There are summer visitors. They go off into Africa over winter, but they return in spring in kind of May time and set up territories. The males tend to arrive a bit sooner than the females, and when they arrive on suitable territory they'll start to display and sing to try and attract a mate, and the females come through a little bit later, generally speaking. So they used to be widespread and fairly common in places across southern England and elsewhere in the UK. Their declines coincided with the arrival of agrochemicals in farming systems, so the loss of wildflowers in pasture, the clearance of scrub and isolated pockets of shrubby habitat and hedgerows within farmed landscapes. But they were also in clearfells, forestry clearfells, and open heathland habitat in the Suffolk Sandlings, the New Forest, the Thames Basin heaths, those kind of habitats. So really you can tell the kind of habitat they really love is open, early successional, scrubby grassland with not too much scrub. They don't like big thick blocks of scrub. Things like turtle doves do love those big thick blocks of scrub. Red-backed shrikes like it a bit more open. So they declined because of agricultural intensification. They basically became extinct effectively as a breeding species in the UK, and they contracted also in France and the Netherlands and Denmark and Spain, in those lowland farmed landscapes that were being subject to agricultural intensification. So what can we do? Can we actually get this species back? Well, that's really largely what this little booklet is all about. What should we do? Can we do? What can we do? First and foremost, we need to work with BirdLife partners, so BirdLife international partners in Northwest Europe, to help them to get the agri-environment schemes right and to work with farmers to get high quality habitats where there are still red-backed shrikes in the Netherlands, in northern France especially. Now the great thing is, and Denmark, Belgium I mean, the great thing is the populations are actually beginning to increase now in, say, the Netherlands, where lots of early successional shrubby habitat has been created. Red-backed shrikes have responded really well to that. So we do have really good evidence that in areas where the population has declined, they can recover. We know that from the Netherlands, so there's a run of good breeding seasons combined with some really good habitat creation, which the birds quickly responded to. They spread out of areas where they were previously nesting and to recolonise new areas of early successional habitat. And there's quite an interesting part about the kind of the ecology of red-backed shrike, which is that they show pretty low rates of natal site fidelity or philopatry. So the juveniles, they fledge in the autumn, they migrate down into Africa, they return in the spring, the survivors do anyway, but they tend not to return back to the vicinity of their natal area where they fledged from. What they're doing is they're following early successional habitats. That's what they're ecologically geared up to doing. So they're not site faithful. At least the juveniles won't come back to their natal site, so low breeding or low natal site fidelity, whereas adults that have successfully bred within a territory will tend to return to that territory, the ones that survive. So we've got a species that likes early successional shrubby grassland habitat that can be easily recreated. So on the near continent, what we need to be doing is supporting BirdLife partners, you know, the kind of the bird conservation charities within the Netherlands and France and Belgium, Spain, to get cracking habitat in place. And what that will do is not only consolidate and bolster and increase or speed up the increase in red-backed shrike populations on the near continent, it could also increase the rate at which individual birds spill over onto the south coast of England. So migrants in spring We do get a few that come along the south coast and the east coast especially of England every spring. As far as I know, there's been no indication of an increase in the numbers of spring arrivals. So they are increasing in the Netherlands and northern France, but then that's not being met by an increase in the numbers coming to southern England or eastern England. So first task is to help partners on the near continent to boost the populations of redback shrikes there and their productivity, so there's more birds basically coming into the UK. But what we urgently need to do in the UK is create lots more really good habitat for redback shrikes. There's some really good habitat already. There's a Knepp estate, which is really good. Salisbury Lane training area in Porton Down, really good. Parts of Dartmoor, where there was a small population bred about 10-15 years ago. Good habitat there, lots of potential in the Colne. Purbeck is superb. So the Isle of Purbeck could easily support quite a few pairs of redback shrike already, because it's thousands of hectares of really good habitat. They're just not coming over in sufficient numbers to establish viable populations again. And they exist as meta populations where basically, because the juveniles are dispersive, they don't come back into the same area on their return migration. They disperse out and find new territories in new areas. They're just not encountering other redback shrikes, and that is a big problem. But before we do anything more, we need to help people on the continent, and we need to help shrikes on the continent, and we need to create lots and lots of really good habitat in southern England and eastern England for redback shrikes, so that it's available to them should they recolonise naturally. What we should also do, potentially, is supplement the population of birds coming over in spring. We do get a few coming over in spring, but it's not enough. So we need, I think, to do conservation breeding of redback shrikes. So we have birds to release each spring, or at fledging time basically, in summer, late June into July, into August. We need to be releasing birds into the British countryside, into very particular areas, not just willy-nilly all over the place, but in very key areas. And then those birds will migrate if they're released at fledging time. They'll migrate in the in late summer, early autumn, down into Africa. Then some of those will return, and you'll just therefore get more birds returning in the spring, assuming a percentage of the birds that are released will return, as well as the wild bred individuals from Europe coming over in the spring. Now, where do you actually release redback shrikes? So I would suggest that we have available several large blocks of habitat that are at least 2,000-3,000 hectares and more of really good prime habitat, and we should be releasing redback shrikes into areas that are already 2,000-4,000 hectares, highly suitable. The reason being, within those blocks, if you release quite a few birds each year, if it's really high quality habitat, you're more likely to get birds returning to it. If you return them onto small areas of habitat in otherwise quite bleak farmed landscapes, you're not going to get them coming back. They're going to leak, they're going to be more widely dispersed. So where would I actually release the birds? The Knepp estate, absolutely, because it's a couple of thousand hectares, probably the smallest extent that you would want to be releasing birds into. I would suggest looking at Purbeck, which to my mind is the very best area to release birds into, because it's very large scale and it's got a mixture of heathland and limestone and chalk grassland and open scrubby habitats, which are perfect for redback shrikes. Dartmoor, because we know that's really good quality in places, and that's where they last bred very successfully, nice and productive. So release some on Dartmoor and in the Colne next to Dartmoor. Potentially the New Forest, although I'm not entirely convinced that's currently suitable. So probably not as a priority. I'd release them in Purbeck as the highest priority. Potentially Isle of Wight, because there's at least 4,000 or 5,000 hectares of really good quality shrike habitat on the Isle of Wight, and it's an island which could be useful for birds coming back closer to the release site. And potentially the Sandlings and Thetford Forest as well, so two Suffolk, Norfolk, heathland type areas. I probably wouldn't have heathlands as your priority release areas, because I think scrubby limestone and calcareous grassland is probably the primary best quality habitat with the highest productivity overall. We won't know until we get them back. That is what I would do, and I would release a lot of birds over as smaller period of time as possible. Don't do trials, release 40, 50, 60 redback shrikes, July, August, each year for as long as you can afford to do it, and release them from multiple sites. So what I would suggest is releasing from the Knepp Estate in Sussex, the Isle of Purbeck in South Dorset, Dartmoor, and potentially Thetford Forest or the Suffolk Sandlings and that kind of Suffolk coastal area, and Salisbury Plain Training Area, which I actually forgot to cite as a really good area. I may have mentioned it previously, but on Salisbury Plain Training Area you've got the largest block, 28,000 hectares of absolutely superb habitat, which could be made better. It needs a bit more scrub. It's got plenty of scrub on it, but it needs a bit more. I call them shrike shrublands, these habitats. And let's come back to my book, because we're coming to the end of this video now. So I wrote this little booklet. Sorry, the camera's down there. So Return of the Butcher Bird, and this goes into quite a bit more detail about how to go about creating the habitat, creating the conditions that redback shrikes need, and how you'd go about actually reintroducing the species or supplementing the migrants that we already get each spring. So check that out. It's available on Amazon. Steve Jones is the author. Return of the Butcher Bird is the name of the book. Restoring the Redback Shrike to Britain is the subtitle. Thank you for watching this video. Watch more of my videos on this channel if you wish to do so. And if you want to support the channel, there's a buymeacoffee.com link in the description below the video. There's lots more videos on this channel, so it'd be great if you could watch more videos. And the great benefit of doing that is I'm almost up to monetization on this channel, which means I get 2 or 3p a day from ad revenue. So if you can go and watch more of my videos, that would be very much appreciated. And thank you for watching this one.